All right. Well, good morning again, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's agent development training. I had a couple of announcements that I went over before I hit record. But we are in week number 9 of the 12-week series that we're in. Week number 9 is entitled Creating the Need for Supplemental Insurance and Designing the Solution. If you guys remember last week, Steve did a really great job of going through the under 65 health insurance options, the base health insurance pieces and kind of walked us through what it looks like to sell individual health insurance and give us some great pointers around that. That was such good training that we actually broadcast it live in our new agent training. So for those of you that were in the new agent training, I think that was good exposure to what ADT is all about. This week, though, is talking about filling the gaps. And one of the things that I would say is in the under 65 space, it is a tremendous opportunity to cross sell into supplements and life insurance. The big thing about supplements is that right now there are enormous gaps in all under 65 health insurance products. You've got large deductibles, large out-of-pocket maximums, narrow networks. Those are probably the three biggest gaps that we deal with. And Gary Boverhoff says it very, very well. He said the Affordable Care Act made it more affordable for us to buy insurance, but less affordable for us to use the insurance. We find that many of our clients today are in $10,000 plus out-of-pocket maximums per person per year. And the reality of it is most Americans really would be financially devastated if they end up in the emergency room or they have a heart attack or they have an accident and all of a sudden they have a $10,000 out of pocket that they have to deal with. The other thing you got to think about is, God forbid, they happen to be diagnosed in the latter portion of the year with something major and it bleeds over into the new year. They have a deductible and out of pocket to meet for this year. And then what happens January 1st? Everything resets and they have to re-ante again. So there are just a lot of emerging gaps that I think supplemental insurance can really fill the gap on. I know Steve's going to talk through the details of that today, and so I want to turn things over to him and give him as much time as I possibly can. Cab, I just did allow you to screen share, so I'm here. I'm here to help, and if you have questions, I'm happy to step in. But I'll kind of turn things over to you for the majority of the call.
All righty. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes, we can. Looks perfect.
All right. So, basically, like Silas said, last week we talked about how to explain the health insurance. And I think I said it last week, but I'll say it again. Guys, they don't need us for health insurance. They can go get it anywhere. They can do it themselves. They can call enrollers. They can go to Medicare.gov. I mean, there's all kinds of people out there that'll just sell them health insurance. What makes us different is the fact that we're going to help protect their income because, again, my whole business revolves around two facts. Fact number one is medical bills are the number one reason why people file bankruptcy now. And fact number two is most of the people filing medical bankruptcy have health insurance. And so it's not about not having insurance. Of course, if you don't have insurance, yes, you could file medical bankruptcy, but for most people, it's about lost income. Okay. And so the thing that really kind of cemented this into my body and my brain, my heart, whatever you want to talk about it, is a lot of you know the story of my Uncle David. Several years ago, my Uncle David woke up with a sore throat. Wasn't getting any better, so he figured I better go to the doctor. I must have strep throat. Doctor looked in there and says, I don't like what I see in there. It's probably nothing, but let's do an MRI. Well, that probably nothing turned out to be throat cancer. And so I watched my uncle go through the battle of his life. Um, where I mean, he had to do chemotherapy 5 days a week. So he did that for 8 weeks. So his treatment took 2 months, and then he had to recover from that treatment. It took another 2 months. So my uncle went 4 months without being able to work. Now, where he worked, his employer was very generous. They said, look, we're not going to put you on Cobra. We'll let you keep the insurance, but we can't pay you because you're technically not working. And so my uncle went 4 months without any income. And even though his medical bills were well in excess of six figures, his health insurance paid virtually all of it. But I watched my uncle lose his home, his car, his marriage. Um, when it was all done, he had some clothes and a bike, and he moved in with my 80-year-old aunt because he had lost everything. And the reason this is so um, close to my heart is I had products I could have sold him that would have protected him from all this. And I never even talked to him about it because he had such good insurance. And I realized back then that health insurance is not enough. And if we're not sitting down with everybody we come into contact with, because I made a decision back then that I'm never going to do that to another human being. I don't care who it is. If I get a chance to get in front of them, I am going to let them know they're still exposed. I'm going to let them know that health insurance is not enough. And then I'm going to show them some solutions based on their situation. And I'm going to let them decide what they want to do about it because my job is just to show it. That's it. And so the way that you can kind of incorporate this is if you'll remember from a previous training when we went through the Sandler tactics, one of them we went through is the pain funnel because if you remember, the thing that allows us to control the dance is if we can take people to their pain or their need, and then we can show them a solution that's going to fit that need or fix that pain, then it's just a matter of not if they're going to do it, just can they afford it? And there's very little resistance to it. And I think one of the biggest reasons why most new people struggle is because you're not getting these people emotionally involved with their pain. And so if you'll remember the pain funnel from the Sandler selling system is there's 4 steps. The first step is taking someone who is well. Someone who's well they don't have a problem. In our world, someone who's well is I just need health insurance or I just need Medicare. If I got that, I'm all taken care of. We have to take those people and we have to make them sick. When we make someone sick, they can see where this might be a problem for somebody. They don't know if it's a problem for them, but they could see where, okay, I could see where that's a problem. Once we do that, then we make them critical. We make them critical by making the problem specific to them and getting them to self-identify that they have a problem and they need help. And then the last step is to create the miracle. Show them the solutions that saves them from this problem that we just help them self-identify. And again, in my 29 years of doing this, I've been teaching this for 26, 27 of them at least. I think a lot of reps come in here and they're very good at taking people from well to sick to miracle. They suck at the critical step, which is the most important step in this whole process. Because if you're not getting people emotionally attached to their problems, they're not going to make a change to anything. They don't see the reason to. So if you're getting a lot of people who say, Silas, I don't need that stuff. I just, I just want the health insurance. That tells me one thing, you're just not creating enough pain. You're not making the pain specific to their situation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the techniques that I use that easily brings this together. Okay. And it actually starts after I show the health insurance. So last week we talked about the health insurance and we talked about how, I show the bronze, the silver, the gold. But my transition into creating the pain, or what I like to call let them know they're still exposed, is I'll say now, before you choose a plan, I need to tell you the 2 things that none of these plans will cover. Because think about it, guys. How many people say, okay, Steve, what's the catch? What's the fine print? What aren't you telling me? Well, I'm playing into that right now by saying, look, before you decide if you want to go bronze, silver, or gold, I need to show you what none of these plans cover. And all of a sudden, that will get their attention because now all of a sudden, they're not well anymore. Something's going on. I thought all I needed was one of these three plans and I'm fine. And Steve, you're telling me that these plans don't cover something? I'm a captive audience now. Tell me. Because remember, lie, steal, lie, and hide, what do they want us to be? They want us to be unpaid consultants. So here's where I'm going to be an unpaid consultant by telling them the two things these plans don't cover. The first one, Silas has already mentioned, the max out of pocket, the MOOP. This becomes very significant if you get sick or injured. And I literally will point to it. I'll say the first thing these plans aren't going to cover is that number right there. And that's going to become very real if you get sick. And then the second thing these plans are not going to cover is your monthly bills. So the two things these plans don't cover is they don't cover the max out of pocket and they don't cover the monthly bills. Now, why is that important? If you guys will remember when we talked about completing the fact finder, one of the questions on there, there's a question you can ask. I ask, do you have any income protection? Some people ask, look, if you can't work, I don't care what question you ask. The bottom line is if something happens to you, do you have any income protection? And when they say no during the fact finder, I can actually use that against them now to get them emotionally involved. So when I say the second thing these plans will not cover are your monthly bills. And so here's how I make them critical if their income is from a job. So Silas, the two things these plans are to cover, they're not going to cover the max out of pocket. That becomes very real when you get sick. The second thing this is going to cover is your monthly bills. The reason that's important is you told me a few minutes ago that you didn't have any income protection. So if you were to experience an accident or develop cancer and were unable to work for 1 or 2 months, how would that impact you financially? And then you just shut up and they're going to tell you the pain. And most of the time, they're going to say, I don't know, it would suck. I'd be devastated. The beautiful thing about this question, when you ask, look, you don't have any income protection, how is this going to impact you financially? Any answer they give you is not going to be a good answer. Any answer they give you is they're going to realize they're in trouble. And so whatever answer they give me, my follow-up to that is, are you comfortable with that? Because when someone says they're not comfortable with their current situation, you have now got them emotionally involved. And it doesn't have to be 1,000 questions. It's like, look, if this happened, what would you do? I don't know. Are you comfortable with that? No. Okay. Then here are some options you might want to consider. And that's the transition into the miracle step, which I'll show you in a second. Now, a lot of times people are going to say, I don't know what I would do because 82% of all working Americans have no income protection according to LIMRA. So for those of you who say, well, everyone I talk to doesn't need this stuff, no, you're either not seeing anybody or you're just believing their bull crap because most people don't have any income protection. But some people are going to say, well, I have savings. And I know just from talking to some of you on this call, when the minute people say they have savings, you kind of just cry uncle and give up. I love people who tell me they have savings because if someone tells me they have savings, they're also telling me they can afford the premium. But I've got to get them to understand why they would still want to use their savings to pay premium instead of paying the bill. And so the question I always ask is, how much of your savings are you willing to lose to an illness or injury? And a lot of people are going to say, well, I don't want to lose any of it. And as soon as they say, I don't want to lose any of it, then okay, well, then here's some options you might want to consider. But some people will mention an amount. Well, so if they say 10,000 or they say 20, whatever number they give me, I always double it. And I just say, okay, well, I can pay that 10,000 max out of pocket. Well, what if you need 20? And do you really want to lose the 10? Well, no, not really. Okay, then here's some options you might want to consider. And so the whole idea behind this, guys, is all we want to do is ask a few questions that will get these people uncomfortable with their current situation. Matter of fact, I'm challenging everybody on this call right now to ask yourself this question. If you got in an accident or you developed cancer and you couldn't work for 1 or 2 months, what would that do to you financially? And if you don't have a solution because you haven't even taken the time to buy some of these products, I think I know who your first customer really needs to be. Because if you don't believe in it enough to cover you and your family, because I'm sorry, I mean, Steve, I don't make that much money right now. You can get a cancer and accident plan for about $40, okay, for a cost of a pizza and a beer on a Friday night. You can actually get the 10,000 accident wise, 10,000 critical guard. Guaranteed issue. I don't even care what your health is. It's guaranteed issue. If you don't have at least that, you don't believe this enough to protect the people you're going to sit down with. And so the whole idea behind this is I've just got to ask what people would do in their situation. Why? Because they told me they don't have any income protection. So, Silas, I'm going to stop right here and see if you want to interject anything.
I think we're going to get into this, and you mentioned it, but just the idea that our products are so simple to sell right now, and they
Yep.
align so well with what the out-of-pocket maximums on most plans are. I just feel like this has gotten so much simpler. I mean,
Mhm.
most of the plans that I'm selling here in Indiana have $10,000 out-of-pocket maximums. The beauty of our product portfolio is that we have a critical guard, critical illness, an accident wise, and a guaranteed issue hospital wise that all will pay $10,000 and they're guaranteed issue. I think it's worth mentioning that that hospital wise product that we have with at the $10,000 level is a proprietary product that only Health Markets agents can sell. It's a United Health One product, but no other brokers. They have 88,000 brokers nationwide, and no other broker can sell that product. It is a very unique product that you have in your portfolio that you should be talking about every single time. And when you think about the reasons that people are going to hit their out-of-pocket maximums, it falls into most likely three things: major illness, major accident, or hospitalization. Well, the critical guard, critical illness at 10,000, the accident wise at 10,000, the hospital wise at 10,000. All of those products very nicely mesh. And then vision and dental, if they want it, is a really nice add-on. So I'm just a big believer that you've got to be thinking from that perspective is that every single conversation you have about an ACA product should include 10,000 critical guard, 10,000 accident wise, 10,000 hospital wise, and vision and dental. And if they want to back something down, have them pull the vision and dental off first, right? So this is not rocket science. This has become way easier than what it's ever been because there's no underwriting on this stuff. It's a guaranteed issue and it very, very nicely matches with what their exposure is. So that would be my thought, Cav.
Yeah, and again, I totally agree. I mean, for many years in this business, we had to be creative on who we could write this on because there were health questions. But now that we have guaranteed issue products, I mean, we can show this to anybody, guys. That's why I don't even, when I'm doing the fact finder and setting appointments and stuff, I don't even ask what their health is anymore. I'll go over it when we get together. But I know that I can bring in quotes that no matter what they tell me, I have something for them in the supplemental world. Okay, may not be true in the health. If they don't have an enrollment into a ACA plan, they're going to have to wait till November. I mean, Golden Rule does have like a guaranteed issue hospital slash protector guard type plan, but it's very limited. So it is good for someone just to buy them some time. But man, when it comes to these supplemental products to either help pay their medical bills or pay their monthly bills, I mean, think about, I want all you guys to think about this. Think of your monthly expenses, not your income, your monthly expenses. For a lot of people, $10,000 could cover 2 to 3 months of expenses. I'm talking paying bills and eating macaroni and cheese. I'm not talking about going to Disney, buying a new car. And so for us not to even get to the point where someone will at least take that, and again, I agree with Silent. I mean, even if they have a lot of money, you got a $10,000 max out of pocket. Okay. So why would you want to pull that out of your savings, even if you have it? Because now Uncle Sam's going to tax you. If you're under 59 and a half, he's going to penalize you. And oh, by the way, if you're getting a subsidized premium, you're going to pay some of the premium back. So even people who have money, pulling it out, especially if they have a subsidized health plan is the stupidest thing in the world they could do. Take some of that money, shift the risk to the insurance company, and then get tax-free payouts to help pay your bills and stuff like that. So, again, guys, there's only two ways people are going to get their income. They're either going to get it from a job or it's going to be some sort of fixed income like a pension, Social Security. Maybe they're a landlord and they got just a bunch of, in other words, they got money coming in whether they're working or not. And so that's the other group of people, is the fixed income. And everything else is the same except the question. So again, the reason this is important, because you mentioned a few minutes ago that you didn't have any income protection. So if you were to experience an accident or develop cancer and your expenses exceeded your income, how would you handle that financially? So if someone is working for their income, if you couldn't work for a month or two, what would that do to you? If someone has fixed income, if your expenses exceeded your income, what would you do? And then everything else is identical. Okay. But this is the most important part, is you've got to get people uncomfortable with their current situation. And then once you get them uncomfortable with their current situation, then you do the miracle step, or what I'm calling here, let them cover the exposure. Okay. And so again, I'm going to just give this little disclaimer. What I'm going to show you is the way that I do it. It's not the way to do it. It's just a way to do it. There's 100 different ways you can do this. I'm going to show you the way that worked the best for me. I'll probably have Silas talk about how he does it. But the bottom line is, once you get people emotionally involved, showing them the solution, it should just be yes or I can't afford it. Those are the only two things you should get. Okay. So when I performed the miracle, I actually have two pre-printed quote sheets that I prepare before the appointment so I can transition right into the solution. So when I tell these people, look, there's two things these health plans aren't going to cover. It's not going to cover your max out of pocket. It's not going to cover your monthly bills. The reason that's important is you told me blah, blah, blah. The minute they say they're not comfortable with something, I want to say, well, then here's some plans you should consider. And I'm going to throw the quotes right on the table. If you have to now go to your computer and pull them up now, you just shot your foot off, guys, because all the momentum's gone. So the beautiful thing about us offering guaranteed issue products now is that I can pre-print a quote, or I can have it sitting on my computer where I can just pull it up and go right into the solutions. And so my first quote is what I call an income protection plan. And the second is a dental vision quote. I separate the two because some people in the fact finder say, I got false teeth. I don't need dental, and I'm blind. I don't want vision. Okay, whatever. Okay. So I'm not going to show it to them. The other thing that I do that has worked very well for me is I present the solutions using what I call horizontal selling. So I'm going to show you vertical selling and horizontal, but I prefer horizontal because this allows me to sell each product based on its own merit, and it allows the customer to custom design the plan around their needs and their budget. In other words, when they build the plan, there's a lot more value. When you just throw a plan at them, they haven't created any value. Okay. And then the other thing that has worked very well for me is when I present these products, I do not focus on paying their medical bills. I focus on paying their monthly bills because it creates more emotion, because there is a greater risk. And so can they use this money for their max out of pocket? Of course. But the only time I mention the max out of pocket is when I'm doing the transition into the pain funnel. But when I'm actually showing these plans, I do not talk about their medical bills, and here's why. What's one thing I can do with medical bills that I can't do with monthly bills? Someone unmute and just throw me, what do you think I'm looking for? What can I
Payment
do with
plan.
medical? What's that?
Payment plan.
That's right. Nobody's going to lose their house over $10,000 or $20,000. I'm sorry, they're just not, because if it's a medical bill, you can make payments on it. But can you make payment on your May house payment? Can you make payments on your June car payment? Can you make payments at the grocery store? And so when I'm talking about these products and the income these products provide, I'm always focusing on paying their monthly bills because monthly bills create a greater attachment than, oh, I got 10,000 in the bank. I can handle that max out of pocket. It's probably not going to happen to me. But when you start talking to people about losing their house, having their electricity shut off, not being able to provide food for their kids, that gets people emotionally attached. And so here's how I do it. So when I bring it in, and I got to give kudos to Tony Letcher, he taught me, I put things in terms of basic, enhanced, and premier. Now, what some people do is they sell vertically. In other words, I got this basic package for 134. I've got this enhanced package for 244. I got this premier package for 368. That's one way to do it. You can just say, do you want the basic, the enhanced, or the premier? The problem I found with that is when I throw this on the table and they look at these numbers and they have no idea what they mean, they're already going to make a decision in their mind that I can't afford this or I don't want it. But when you sell horizontally, in other words, the very first plan I'm going to talk about is the accident wise. And I basically, this is what it does. This is what it costs. Do you want it? And the very first price they're seeing is $49.35 in this case. If it's a single person, it's $16.45. Okay. Or in Michigan, it's $15 and some change, I think. But it's just like, okay, that's the accident wise. And I have my presentation book where I'm showing it what it does. And I'll literally just ask, Maggie, if you were hospitalized due to an accident and we gave you $10,000, would that help you pay your monthly bills? She says, yeah. Okay, so do you want the basic, the enhanced, or the premier? I don't say, do you want the 10, the 15, or 20? I say these words because subliminally, these words have meanings to different people. So first of all, there's people out there that they want the cheapest of everything. They buy generic cereal, generic toilet paper, they just give me the cheapest. There's also people that are kind of in the middle where they don't want the cheapest, but they don't need the best. But we all know some people that they got to have the best of everything, whether they need it or not. And so when I say, okay, Maggie, if you were hospitalized, would 10,000 help you pay your monthly bills? Yeah, okay. Do you want the basic, the enhanced, or the premier? In other words, do you want to pay 49, 90, or 141? And Maggie's making that decision. So then I go to the critical guard. This plan has 3 buckets of money. Has a bucket of money for cancer, bucket of money for heart attack and stroke, bucket of money for things like Alzheimer's, Lou Gehrig's. So again, Jim, if you got cancer and we sent you $10,000, would that help you pay your monthly bills?
Yes, it would.
Okay, well then do you want the basic? Do you want the enhanced? Do you want the premier? And then
Basic.
finally, the last one is the hospital-wise. Now, I build them a little bit differently for pricing points. So what I do is I do 1,000 times 3 with $1,000 outpatient surgical, 2,000 times 3, and then 3,000 times 3. Because I find when you do the 10,000 for a family, it's $500 and people can't afford it. So again, if you were in the hospital for 3 days and we sent you $3,000, would that help you pay your monthly bills? Yeah, I never focus on the medical bills. But if they want to focus on the medical bills, what's 3,000 times 3? That's almost going to hit the 10,000. Okay. And then I literally let these people custom design. So you might have someone who takes the basic accident, the premier critical guard, and I don't even want whatever. They're building their own plan. So it's going to be much harder for them to cancel this down the road when they see a golden rule. They're not going to be like, what's this golden rule draft coming out? Because they built this income protection plan. So again, 2 ways. And again, I don't even care what products you put in here. These are the big 3. And the only two plans that are underwritten are these two critical guards here, which if I'm coming across someone who's a diabetic, I can sell them all three accidents. I can sell them all three hospital wise, but I can only sell them that. And I'll just tell them, look, because you're a diabetic, this is the only one we can do. So, Silas, what comments do you have? Because I see your head spinning.
It is spinning a little bit because there are various ways that you can choose to present product. And I think you've just got to be a student of your business and figure out how are you going to teach this stuff and how are you going to present it in a way that it makes sense to the client and it makes sense to you. I think what Steve does here is great. I'll tell you, I do it a little bit differently. Um, I kind of like the idea of what Derek Mabry has shared in the past, where as he's getting into product, he tells clients, I'm going to quote you everything, and then you can pick and choose what you would like to select. And his obvious everything is not every single thing in our portfolio because that would take all day, but it's a subset of the products. And what I've gravitated to the last couple of years is when I'm quoting, I will typically quote on the three different columns because we have our three panel approach. I will quote a gold, a silver, and a bronze plan with whichever carrier we're looking at. And then under that, I'm simply quoting 10,000 critical illness, 10,000 accident, 10,000 hospitalized, and the 3,000 um, dental wise max. And that's where I start. So I like doing it that way because it is very simple. And no matter what they choose, whether they want to go gold, silver, or bronze, we've usually got three, like a nice spread on what the premiums would be. And no matter which product they select, as far as the base health insurance, they're getting the critical guard, the accident wise, the hospital wise, and the dental vision. Now, if that bronze plan with all four of them loaded in is still too expensive, my first drop is the vision dental. My second drop is the hospital wise because that's usually the larger portion of the premium. I still feel like if someone buys a bronze plan with a $10,000 critical guard and a $10,000 accident wise, they're buying two supplemental products from me. That's good for me, but it's also good for them because we're protecting their out-of-pocket maximum on whatever that bronze is. Most of those bronze plans have around a $10,000 out-of-pocket maximum. So I'm not saying my way is better or Steve's is better. It's just we do it different ways, which I think is okay too. And that's kind of the beauty of this is, I mean, this whole opportunity, we have guardrails we have to run within, but you can kind of build this out how you want to do it. I just think the number one thing though is you have to present the product 100% of the time in some format or another, right, Kev?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that Silas and I both do, we may do it a little bit differently, but we do it, is we let people know that health insurance isn't enough. And if they want to reduce their chance of medical bankruptcy, they need some of this stuff. Now, the more the better, but again, I agree that the 10,000 accident wise, 10,000 critical guard is kind of the bare bones minimum because that's the big four. I mean, when you think about if I'm going to have anything catastrophic, statistically it's going to tie into heart attack, cancer, stroke and accident. And then you can throw on any hospitalization. But when you look at this stuff starts to get pretty pricey. And so I agree. I don't even show dental and vision until they've got their income protection designed. But yeah, I have some people that they just don't take the hospital wise because I mean it's expensive. Okay. Now it's very valuable, but I would rather have them have the heart attack, cancer, stroke, and accident at the 10,000 level. Because I'll tell you, this is what I sell most of the time is the basic. Even when I give people these options, they usually pick this. But again, I didn't
Well,
sell it to them. They picked it.
the other thing I would say is you will not sell 100% of the product you don't present. I think Derek Mabry, again, is one of the best in the country at that, making sure that every time it's not his choice on what a client wants. What his job is to make sure that he presents all the products, shows them where their gaps and holes are, and makes, product recommendations that can fill those gaps and holes. I also want to look at this. So I'm going to take that basic premium there. So $135 a month times 12 months. That's $1,620 that consumer would pay in their first year. So the annual volume or monthly premium times 12 is 1620, 1,620. We use a blended average of about 27%. So your commission on that is about 27%. So when I run the math on that, that one sale there, not counting the health insurance, you'd make about $437 on in the first 12 months. And then you multiply that times 2.85 to get your FYCRs. That's about 1,250 FYCRs on that single lowest cost supplemental sale. If you do that 40 times in a year, you're going to be at tier two, not counting anything else that you're doing alongside it. I go back to, I think the key to success, especially for new agents in this business, is to find $120 a month of golden rule premium. And that's that one deal right there, 134.72. If Cap did that every single week, regardless of anything else that he's doing, he would be tier two status with it inside of 12 months. And that's our goal for all of you is get you to tier two status as quickly as we possibly can. I will tell you, some of you are struggling to get to tier two status. Number one, because you're not making consistent sales each week, but number two, because you're not cross-selling at the level you should be and could be. You look at the agents that are at the top of the charts when it comes to income, when it comes to impact on their clients, when it comes to revenue and FYCRs, all of those agents are also at the top of the charts when it comes to supplemental and or life insurance sales. And it's because they're simply talking about it. They've figured out a way that they can present it so that it's understandable for a client. And that's a big thing for us. I mean, I think about the fact that we are salespeople. We're insurance agents and absolutely in the sales world, but we're much more educators and advisors than we are salespeople. And I think you have to come at it from that perspective. How can you take this material and simplify it down and teach it really well? And I think the sales are just an outcome of teaching it really well, asking the right questions in the right sequence, engaging with that consumer, and delivering an exceptional experience. Being able to sell one or two of these a week. I mean, at two of these a week, you'd be pushing tier three status within 12 months. So this is not super difficult, but I just see so many agents that fall into the trap of becoming solely an enroller, where they're just enrolling people in health insurance or enrolling people in Medicare, and they're not even fulfilling what I believe is our fiduciary responsibility to fully explain where the gaps and the holes are and make product recommendations around filling those gaps and those holes. That's our job, guys. So I just encourage you to take that very seriously and figure out how you can do this and do it really well.
All right. So that's my income protection quote. Then the second quote I bring in is the dental and vision. And again, I sell it in the basic, enhanced, and premier. This is what it does. This is what it costs. Do you want it? It's funny. I mean, Kevin McIntyre wrote 1 million last year. And whenever he talks subs, he still does that. This is what it does. This is what it costs. Do you want it? He learned that from me very early on, and that's just the way he's kind of approached it. So now, once you actually design the plan, I'm just going to share with you kind of how I close the deal. So first of all, after I get done explaining this stuff and you have people make decisions, they get a little panicky. So I want to kind of put a built-in kind of buffer for them. And so I just ask, do you have any questions on anything we've covered so far? Because what have we covered? We've covered the health insurance, we've covered the subs. And so once they say no, I said, all right, now that we've designed your income protection package, which health plan do you want to go with? So now I'll go back to my computer and say, do you want to go with the bronze, silver, or the gold? Okay. And then they say, well, let's do the bronze. Okay, when we put your package together, the premium will be about, so let's just say they do the bronze with the basic package, which is going to be about 583. Does that still work for the budget? And most of the time they're going to say, yeah, because they're adding it up in their head. But sometimes people will say, oh, that's a little bit more than I want to spend. Okay, not a problem. Which plans do you want to remove? Where do you want to be exposed? Do you want to be exposed for accidents? You want to be exposed for critical illness? You want to be exposed for being confined to the hospital? Do you want to, if they put dental on there, do you want to be, guys, I never take anything out. I ask them, what do you want to take out? And it's funny because at this point, especially if I'm talking to a husband or a wife, interesting conversations start. Like, if we would get rid of the 8 streaming services we never watch, or if we would quit eating out 6 nights a week, or if you'd quit golfing, or you'd quit all this, because what is that telling me? The pain's been created because most people, they will start adjusting their budget to solve the problem. The problem with most of us new people is we haven't got them to realize there's a problem. Because, guys, once you do that, once you learn how to take into their pain and make their pain critical, make them emotionally involved, they're going to buy from you on a regular basis. I mean, that's why we got Kevin McIntyre and Tony and Derek and myself and Rick, all these tier 3, tier 4 people. We show it all the time, and we either get a yes or I can't afford it. That's it. There's no objections. I don't really need that. And so that's the skill you guys just need to learn how to do, is just get them emotionally involved. And I found the easiest way to do it is, let me show you the 2 things these health plans aren't going to cover. Not going to cover your MOOP, not going to cover your monthly bills. And then go from there. Now, to kind of bring up what Silas did is, when you the reason I show the gold plan, I think I talked about this last week, is twofold. Number one, if you don't show the gold plan, in their mind, they're thinking you're not showing me the best plan. Because everyone thinks gold better than silver and silver is better than bronze, but we proved with potential risk last week that that's not true. Bronze is better than silver and silver is better than gold because of the cost. Okay. So when we look at this, so for this family, a gold was 1,500, a silver was 714. So I could actually do a bronze plan with the enhanced package, which was 224, and I'm still cheaper than the silver. Or I could do the bronze with the basic, and I'm a lot cheaper. And that's why we try and get you guys to understand, try and get as many people to the bronze plan as you can, because that'll free up premiums to fill in the gaps. Because again, are they going to be better off on a silver plan with an $8,900 max out of pocket if they get cancer? Or are they going to be better off on a 10,000 max out of pocket and getting 10,000 cash to pay that? Okay. That's how you have to look at it. And so, going with what Silas did, if you had that enhanced protection, which was like 244, a tier 1 agent would get 576 and 2,100. A tier 2 would be 693, 2,600. Tier 3, 759, 2,800. Or tier 4, 805, 3,000. Now that's great, because every once in a while you will get people that will buy the enhanced and the premier. Some of them will, okay? But most of the time, you're going to just get the basic, and Silas already did the numbers on it. But again, 316, 1203, 381, 1448, 417, 1587, and 442, 1682. Guys, the moral of the story, the reason we want you guys to get to tier 2 as fast as possible is that is the largest jump in commission. Yeah, tier 3 and tier 4 are great, but the biggest jump is from tier 1 to tier 2. And when you can get to the point where you start jumping tiers and you can make more money on the same amount of sales, you don't have to work as hard. You still got to work. It's still hard. But when, Silas can sell a plan and get 442, and then a brand new person with the exact same premium only gets 316, we want to get you guys up as fast as we can. Because here's what we found. Getting to tier 2 is a freaking grind. But then when people hit tier 2, they explode pretty quickly to tier 3. And then a few more eventually will get to the tier 4. But if you can get your business in a tier 2, tier 3 level, even if you get to tier 2 and you never leave, you're going to make 6 figures in a few years. It's just going to happen. You get to tier 3, now it's really going to, you get to tier 4, now you're talking a stratosphere that it's crazy money. But Silas, would you agree with me? I mean, most of our tier 2s are 6 figures.
Yeah, so our average, this was last year was the first year that our average tier 2 agent made over $100,000. That was average. So not all, but that's the average. So 100% agree with that.
Yep. So that's all I got, Silas. Why don't you land the plane here?
I just want to encourage all of you. I think it all very simply starts with making sure that you're quoting the products every single time. You don't have to be some razzle dazzle salesperson. You don't have to do pull a rabbit out of a hat. You just need to tell them where their exposure is and then show them products that'll fill those gaps. It is really that simple. As you begin to develop your skill set, I think, utilizing the pain funnel, getting more in-depth questions, there's a lot of really cool things that you can do, but it all starts with showing the product and quoting the product to begin with. So I just encourage you, make a commitment to not present an ACA plan from this point forward without quoting 10,000 critical guard, 10,000 accident wise, 10,000 hospital wise, and some form of vision dental. Just quote it and then allow them and work with your client to custom design the solution according to what they want and what they actually need. Um, so those are kind of final thoughts for today, Cab. Again, I appreciate you jumping in and running point on all of this. I think we've got some great conversations out ahead of us. I was actually trying to pull up
I
here.
think it's life insurance next week, so we need to have a little powwow on how we're going to do that.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. Yeah, next week is Life Insurance 101. So it's really going to be the basics of life insurance. We should probably have a Kevin Tran lead this training next week. Many of you don't know Kevin, but Kevin is a brand new agent in his first week or two in the organization. Um, Kevin, I saw you on here. Are you still on? I'm scanning the Brady Bunch. There he is. Can you unmute real quick? I'm putting you on the spot.
What's up?
So what are we in? About 2 weeks into your career with Health Markets? Is that about right?
Uh, a little over 2 weeks, three
Yeah.
weeks, I would say.
How many life insurance applications have you submitted so far?
Um, I think I'm at 10 and I have I had to put four more in sometime this week. So my goal was to hit 12 for the month. I'll hopefully hit 15 here by the end of the week. So if I mean I came from a captive agency. If you guys don't know, health markets, life insurance products are awesome. I That's all I can say. If you're not offering it or even at least talking to somebody about it, you're losing out on it's for me, it's the easiest way to get up the tier chain just because it's the highest commissionable product that we sell. So been my focus and it's been great.
Yeah. Well, really great work. I know there's a little bit of lag and stuff hitting the system and stuff. Applications got to get submitted and then approved, and then it hits the health market system, and then you hit your FYCRs and things. But you've done some incredible things about that, and hopefully you'll be able to join us next week because we may want to just tap in to a little bit of your expertise. I mean, you sold more life insurance in the last 2 weeks than anybody else in the territory has sold in the last 90 days. So, like, you're doing some incredible things there, and I will tell you, overall, our life insurance sales. And it's not just 100% because of Kevin, but our life insurance sales for the year are up about 162% over where we were 3 months into 2025. So we do have some pretty incredible things going. To Kevin's point, it is the highest commissionable product we have. From a weighting perspective, it is double weighted. And it is the highest commission. So you take the highest commission and then you double weight it. It allows you to hit some marks that it might be difficult to hit just doing ACA or Medicare by itself. So good work, Tran. I appreciate what you're doing, and it's exciting and fun to see what you're accomplishing.
Thank
We
you.
may ask you a few questions next week, and Cav and I are just going to go through the basics of life insurance next week. There's a lot of different products in our portfolio. Again, I think being a student of your business and starting to understand, we'll start you out with kind of some starter products that I think are good to start with. And then you can kind of begin to graduate into higher levels of life insurance sales over time. So make sure to tune in next week. Thanks for your input, Kevin. Cav, I appreciate what you're doing. I
Well,
hope
I just got
everybody
to
has,
say one thing about Kevin.
yeah.
There's something in the water because we're both LaPorte County. So
Yeah.
we own Northwest Indiana because we're the only two reps over here. So
It's that lead in the water in LaPorte, Indiana,
that's right. That's
right?
right. Makes us think funny.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, you guys take care. Have a great week. If you're in the middle of any storms, I know it's going to rain the rest of the week. Hey, next week. Oh, I did think about this, Cav. Next week, I am going to be on spring break, so we may need to talk through it. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to help next week because I think we're going to be out in Arizona. But
Kevin
maybe
and I got it under control. Just have Sandra get us in, and Kevin and I will will enlighten them.
Okay, that sounds good. I've got some ideas though, so we can definitely chat about kind of sequence and stuff for next week.
Yep.
All right, to the Maggie March clan. Hope you guys have a great morning. See you guys later.